So, figuring out how to start this, that never an easy thing, but I guess we'll start with thanking you for taking the time to listen to this podcast, Call for Fire. My name is Zachary Allen. I am co-host with Mike Sherbanenko.
Hello. I'm Mike Sherbanenko, and we are going to do this podcast. So hopefully you can just enjoy it and chew on some nuggets along the way.
Yeah, and the inspiration for this podcast came mainly from Mike's book, Work It Out, that has recently been released. And if you are interested and would like a copy, feel free to message me or Mike. I have a few copies that I would like to give out to people. And the book is called Work It Out. And that title really sums up a whole lot of what it is life is hard, and you can choose to let it work you out, or you can choose to work it out yourself. And when we sat down and talked about how we were going to kind of go about doing this podcast, we felt that it was really important to go through each one of these things one by one and kind of break down the inspiration for each of them. And the title of this podcast is not called Work It Out, it is called Call for Fire. And before we really get into this too much, I know me and Mike have talked about this quite a bit, but I would like you, Mike, to tell me a little bit more about for the community. And I'm hoping that, most of the veterans who listen to this will probably be familiar with that terminology, but for the non-veterans out there, can you explain what exactly a call for fire is?
Yeah. So when you are when you're on the battlefield and you're surrounded by your enemies and you really don't have any where to turn, so you have to call in for support, whether it's air support, artillery, like Navy, every branch is aware of what a call for fire is. So when you're being overrun and you have no place left to go, you're going to call in a call for fire. And, and that's basically what the reason why we're doing the podcast like this is, because sometimes you need help, not just veterans, but you need help and you don't know where to go and you're looking for that lifeline, and you are in a battle and you don't know what to do and you need to call someone. So we're hoping that this book and this podcast can be an inspiration to you. And that's why we're doing it for a Call for Fire.
Yeah. Really like a lifeline, a last resort, but hopefully this isn't your last resort. Hopefully this is a place that you can turn to before you get to your last resort as a way of not ever reaching that place, because I know I've been at that. And we'll get into this, probably this topic, but kind of hitting that rock bottom moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people really feel like, oh, I've hit rock bottom. Well, if it's not got you to the place where you're willing to overhaul your entire life or change drastic things about it, you probably haven't hit your rock bottom yet. Because let me tell you, having hit my rock bottom, it was like I could care less if I die at this point. That's how bad life really feels. And I've hit that rock bottom before. And I know that we've talked about this. That you've hit that place before. And I think that's what we're trying to help prevent, is getting to that point where it really feels like that is your only option, is to just not be alive anymore.
Right.
So what I'm going to do is I would like to read for you guys Mike's first. So I guess the first of the 45, it's 45, correct? 45 devotionals that are in here. And then we're going to talk about it a little bit. And I think about it like you get to sit down with the author. So think about your favorite books that you've ever read before. And you come up with questions like, I wonder why he did this, or I wonder why he said that. This is that opportunity where you get to listen one-on-one to what the inspiration really is for these things and kind of talk them out a little bit more, because these devotionals, you wrote them in a way that's designed to be quick, get something in you daily, but also have something to chew on for the rest of the day and not take up, an hour of your time reading this really complicated thing. Like, you can think about it for hours, but you don't need to be reading for hours. So we're going to sit down and hopefully have that conversation and answer those questions that people have. And if you have questions about further chapters coming up, chapter 2, 3, all of these further things, you can send those questions in to us. And then that way we have some stuff to talk about here and there. But I'll go ahead and read this and we'll go from there. And I apologize if I mess up a few times. I do not like reading out loud because I feel like my brain always wants to mix up words. No, I don't have like dyslexia or anything like that. I just, my eyes and my brain don't move at the same speed. So the first one is called extraordinary. Have you ever looked at these two words, extraordinary, and realized that they form the word extraordinary? The ordinary becomes special. I believe we are special in many ways without even realizing it. I think Jesus looks down at our extraordinary smiles and is amazed at his creation. Often, we do not embrace what makes us different. That's your extraordinary, my friend. If you were born unique and different, why would you want to be like anyone else? Be your extraordinary. You never know who is watching you or the difference you are making in other people's lives. Above all else, be your extraordinary, because you are showing other people how to be theirs as well. Embrace your differences. Love yourself and others as you deserve to be loved. You will experience extraordinary results. One of the best stories I've heard was of Roger Bannister. For decades, even centuries, runners could not break the 4-minute mile. People would come close, but never broke the record. Then one day, Roger Bannister broke the record. He broke the barrier. His extraordinary accomplishment would go on to inspire thousands of people all over the world to go on to break the 4-minute mile daily. Extraordinary. What can your extraordinary do, my friend? You included a few verses in here. I'll go ahead and just read those. Psalm 139:14. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. And the New Living Translation version of that same verse is, thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. Your workmanship is marvelous. How well I know it. So a lot to kind of break down in here. First and foremost, where did you come up with the idea for extraordinary?
Well, I was watching this movie. It was called Wonder. There's a little boy in this movie that he had all these facial like deformities, and like he didn't look like everybody else. And but he embraced what makes him different in this movie, and he actually started making friends. And but his friends kind of turned on him, and he kind of heard, his friends say that, and then he was like a loner again during the movie. But he always stayed true to himself, like during the whole movie, and he always showed courage, even though he was different. And so towards the end of the movie, the people that befriended him and kind of turned on him, they had to explain like their actions and like apologize, and he actually made friends even though he looked like really different. And let me just say this: when you are embracing like your gift, and a lot of people like don't know still like what their gifts are. I think what my gift is I have the ability to be incredibly vulnerable to help others find courage. I just think that that's my gift. And let me just like say this, okay? Other people's opinion of you is none of your business, first of all, because if you are like being true to yourself, there are other people who aren't going to like you just because you're being true to yourself.
Yeah.
And I just don't really know what else to say besides that. I mean, I've listened to other people for so long, and I wasn't true to myself, and I like completely changed who I was as a person to like appease other people. And it oftentimes it came to like the expense of my family until until I hit my rock bottom moment, and then I had to be honest with myself, and I found out that the people around me I was finding courage through, like my daughters, my son, my wife, the people who are there for you. And let me just like say the people who are there for you, they're going to be there for you no matter what. The people who have their opinions of you, those are the people that you really be like, wow, I can't believe that happened. Because even Zach, he can speak to like this podcast. I'm sure like he thought that he would have all this support from all these people for doing this podcast. But when it came time to come to do it, he looked around and he was like, where did all these people go? I thought they had my back.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to be one of those people who's like, hey, you're on your own. You got to carry the weight of the world on your own. But at the end of the day, if it's not so much that you have to do it on your own, but you can't expect everybody to be involved. Like there's only a very small group of people. And I think nowadays with social media and things like that, we feel like we have this big friend circle or this big group of people that are around us. But really, it's if that's the way that you want to live, what you're going to find is a very shallow and wide friend group. And what you really need to be looking for in life to have success, to have the people around you that are worth having around you is a very small, deep group of people. And especially if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably dealing with some things in life that are a little bit complicated. And if you're not dealing with something that's complicated in life, then you're probably living under a rock. Because like in all reality, I haven't met anybody who's worth spending time with who doesn't have a few skeletons in their closet or a few things in life that they're not necessarily proud of, some tough moments. Because those are the people who we're spending time with. Those are the people who have worked through things or continue to work through things and try to build some character and become an extraordinary person.
I think when you're talking about also the extraordinary, you also got to talk about like, what is your gift? I mean, I think like one of those things that people don't know about me is I like to sew. I sew stuff.
Really?
Yeah. And I sew like every one of my kids' baby blankets. I made my wife a quilt, and there are gifts and talents that you have that you have to embrace. The gifts and talents that you have, you do with ease that other people find difficulty doing. Honestly, that's the best way to say, this is my gift.
How did you get into sewing?
Well, I was, when I got admitted to the hospital because my back was getting so bad, and I had episodes where I was like falling over and I had to concentrate on something. So I asked my wife to get like some material, like all this stuff. And I was like sewing in the hospital. And what I found was unique about sewing is you have to have a finite detail when you sew. And the more I sewed, the more I realized if I'm sewing, I have a better time concentrating on what I'm doing. And then as soon as I did that, I was like, wow. And then when I was being med board from the military, these 80, 90-year-old women like took me like for like 2 months, and they showed me how to quilt a gift and I gave it to my wife for her birthday before we got med boarded. Yeah. So
I learned very basic sewing skills in like 7th grade home economics class. You like learn how to cook an omelet, you learn how to sew something. And I think all we sewed was like a perfectly square pillow and stuffed it with cotton. But I still now know how to thread a needle. I know how to sew with my hands. I know how to, I could probably remember how to use a sewing machine, but man, those simple things like you say, like figuring out those skills, figuring out what you're good at. It's not always going to be your first time, and it's not always going to be what you want it to be. Like I the amount of times that I have started a new thing only to kind of reach my potential very quickly because I'm just not naturally skilled at something. But getting to the point where I can accept that and be like, well, this is just what it is. I'm an ordinary sewer. I am not an extraordinary sewer. Just be okay with that. Cause once again, like you mentioned this, like embracing what makes us different, but also like embracing what you're good at, embracing what you're bad at, and being okay with the things that you're bad at, but not necessarily using that as like an excuse to just not work on it, just accepting that you have certain limitations, and that's okay. It's all right to not be good at everything.
Yeah, I think is interesting with this Devo in particular is I know that there are people who have talents and gifts that they don't want to use them, even though that they're really good at what they do. You know, like there's a guy who he works for a sanitation department. He's one of my neighbors, and this guy is like, you know, he's probably the best like fence builder that I've seen. You know, when I was putting up my fence, this guy just came out with his tractor after he laughed at me for 2 days. And he just, he knocked the whole thing out in like 2 hours. And I was out there for like days, like putting telephone poles in the ground, like doing all the stuff. And he's just like shaking his head. He's like, man, you got a lot of heart, but you have no idea what you're doing, you know, because we have like all these extraordinary people around us, you know, and sometimes we do not appreciate like the gifts and talents of other people, you know, and when we don't appreciate like the people around us, sometimes we don't appreciate like what they do, you know, because like my wife can like balance a budget like nobody's business. Like, you know, I don't know like how she does it, like how she moves money around, like all this stuff. She does it like effortlessly. But then when we sit down and, you know, she's going over the budget, she's doing all the stuff and she's like, run things by me. I'm like, I don't even know how she does it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Like Megan is an incredible multitasker. I can't hardly walk and chew gum at the same time. I've got like a million things going on in my head all the time that I'm one of those people who leaves all the cabinets open, leaves all the doors open, forgets to turn off the lights, forgets to do all these things. And it's not so much that I've just accepted that I'm just not good at that stuff. I've tried to work on it, and she might not say that I've gotten better, but like I also am me. Like it's just, I don't want to say it's just part of who I am, but I'm learning to embrace what makes me different and be okay with it, because for such a long time being kind of the outsider of the inside group is kind of how I felt. Like I was a very big guy, and because of that I played sports, and because I played sports, you know, you hang out with the sports guys and you're inside the sports guy group, but you never really feel like you're part of it because, you know, you're the lineman hanging out with all the wide receivers and running backs and stuff like that. But one of these things is not like the other. And learning to kind of accept who I was really tough for such a long time. I never wanted to be who I was because I never felt like I belonged anywhere. And as I kind of entered into my late 20s and early 30s, I started to learn to embrace who I was and not necessarily look to be like, oh, what's everybody else doing? Let me try to join in on that. Let me try to be something different. Let me try to be like everybody else. No, I have found the most heartbreak and the most fulfillment in embracing who I was and embracing who I am. And I continue to find that it's not like once you say, okay, I'm going to embrace who I am, that magically things become better and things become good, but it's the start. It's the start of something good. And you know, that idea of that you say often, we do not embrace what makes us different. It's like rarely do we actually embrace what makes us different, because we're so inundated with what everybody else is doing that it's almost impossible to just be who you are.
Yeah, I think one of the worst things like we can do is copy someone else. And I've heard like there's a guy, one of those motivational speakers. I think his name's Les Brown. I think he's the one. He's like, if you're saying no to yourself, you're literally like committing spiritual suicide, you know? And all these dreams and all these aspirations that you have in your life, they literally came to you, and it's like, we came to you so you could give us life. And I always remember that, like, I need to be true to myself when I'm doing all this stuff, because every time I try to be someone else, it turns out to be like a miserable failure. And I'm like, I was like, why is this not working? You know, I can always bowl my way through it. I can always do all the stuff. But if I do it like the way I'm supposed to do it, without anxiety, without stress, and I take a deep breath and I can go ahead and do it. Because when I'm doing whatever I'm doing with anxiety and stress, I break whatever I'm doing, and it falls apart. And I'm just like, you know, it's just like, you have to be comfortable doing your gift. And even when people and all these naysayers are like watching you do stuff, you're going to empower someone doing your gift. And and it's even like when you're empowering them, sometimes you want to empower the right people. You don't have a choice of who you empower. If you're doing your gift and people are watching you, you know, the Bible says you're surrounded by a greater cloud of witnesses. So someone's going to be watching you do your gift, and all of a sudden, you know, someone is like liberated to follow themselves and be extraordinary, just like one of the chapters said. And I'm like, wow, you know, look what they're doing, you know? And sometimes that's like an appreciation that we don't have in ourselves when we do something, because we don't appreciate like a gift that we have, you know?
Yeah. And I think really one of the biggest reasons that I know I struggled and a lot of other people struggle to embrace really who you are, and is either this fear of disappointing or judgment from other people, like that. It's like that mom and dad syndrome. Like, I don't want to upset mom and dad. I got to toe the family line. I know that was big for me, like family honor. And I'm trying to keep my mouth clean here. But at the same time, like, I love my family, but if I'm more concerned with what my family thinks of what I do than what I think of what I do, I've already lost that battle. So that's one part of it, is this kind of fear of backlash from the people that you think matter the most to you. And this fear of missing out, almost like that if I'm not part of what everyone else is doing. And there's this fear that I'm missing out on all this stuff that's going on over there. And that's a big part of social media too. Like, oh, they're eating at this place, I need to go to that place too. And I don't even like that type of food. Why would I go there? Or everyone's going to see this new movie, like this stupid Barbie movie. Like, people are going to see the Barbie movie. Like, I'm not going to join in and go see a Barbie movie.
Just an FYI about that movie. Are you aware that so much pink paint was used in the Barbie movie that there was actually a world shortage on pink paint? That's a true fact about that movie. I'm just like, wow, freaking Barbie, man.
That is insane.
Yeah.
Also, People out there looking for pink paint. What the hell are you painting pink? Like in all reality, what
Yeah. Yeah.
are you trying to do?
Yeah. Who knows? Pink is like literally like red and white.
I
Just,
like pink, but I'm not painting anything pink. I got a pink shirt. That's about it.
yeah.
When I had braces, I had the little pink things on there a couple of times, but
Yeah.
definitely not painting my house pink.
Yeah.
I say all that to say, like, there are going to be people that you love and that are close to you that are going to disapprove of what you really feel like you are and who you are and what you want to be. But at the end of your life, are you going to look back and be like, man, I'm so happy I made everyone happy but me? Like, whose happiness is more important to you? Is your, like, not, look, happiness is overrated in my opinion. Purpose is what's more important. You can get by without being happy if you have purpose. And having a purpose in life will more than likely make you happy at some point or bring you some sort of joy or fulfillment. But like, I don't know if you feel this way, Mike, but it's not always going to make you happy. Like doing the hard things, like embracing who you are. It's not always going to make you happy, at least in the short term, but like it'll give you a purpose.
Yeah. You know, that's true. I heard I can't remember. I listen to a lot of different motivational speakers. So sometimes I quote them and I have no idea like who said what.
If this was your quote, go ahead and tag yourself.
Yeah. Go ahead and tag yourself after I say this. Might have been like TD Jakes or I don't know, maybe it was in a sermon or something, but he said, the two happiest days of your life is the day that you were born, and the second is the day that you realize why.
Mm.
And I always keep that in mind because when I found like the most like joy so far in my life is when I've been helping other people like get over like whatever they're doing, you know? And for me, like that's living. That's living when you can help someone and, you know, you're giving up your time and you're giving up like, you know, your vulnerability, you're like showing them your soul. And that's like something that like no one can pay back. You can't pay back time. You can't pay back someone else's vulnerability. And that's why like I do what I do. Like when people reach out to me, you know, and or people have had questions about the book or whatever, I try to get as vulnerable as I can to help them get whatever they're going through, you know, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but I'm always gonna try, you know? So.
Yeah. There's so much more to helping people than just, I don't know. You know, it's like that kind of thing that you hear of it's better to give than to receive. And I think like to help somebody, you don't have to really be incredible at anything. You just have to be a little bit better than that person. Like this is something that I tell people all the time is when I help people lose weight and start getting themselves in a place that's better, I tell them to go out and help as many people as possible because I learned this by having a kid and watching, like, for example, your son, who's about a year older than my son, teach him things like when they're playing together, like show him things and teach him how to do something. It's a 3.5-year-old teaching a 2.5-year-old something. It's not a 20-year-old teaching a 2.5-year-old something. These are both highly unskilled individuals in the grand scheme of life. Yet Eli has the ability to teach Teddy things. He doesn't have that much more experience. He doesn't have that much more knowledge, but like you just have to be a little bit further down the road to show someone how to get there.
Yeah, you know, that's pretty interesting. But Eli and Teddy, they speak the same language for some reason. And I don't understand it. They understand the word dino. They understand the word like, I don't know. They just understand certain words that mean like 20 or 30 things to them. And they're like nodding their head and they're like doing stuff. It's like, I don't understand what's happening right now.
Pretty sure they speak Klingon from Star Trek.
that could be. But even with them, you know, they when you get with people like who are going on the same like trek as you and the same like road as you, it's really refreshing when like this may seem really odd, but when I go to church and like there's a lady, Bev Garner, who is married, who is Pastor Jesse's mother-in-law and Pastor Missy's mom. When I sit down with her and we talk about sewing, it's like my lights light up and someone gets the same language. And I'm like, what? I in the back of my mind, I'm like, what am I doing? You know, I'm like, have this Viking haircut. I got these tattoos, you know, and I'm like, we're talking about sewing and quilting. And I'm just like, man, I go away from that conversation like inspired and like all this stuff. but if they're like other guys that would be like witnessing this conversation and be like, dude, what are you doing? I don't understand like what you're doing. But the thing is, you know, that's Rocky. So when they're like other people, you know, that you know, can breathe life into what your thing is, you shouldn't be embarrassed to, you know, embrace that conversation, because ultimately, you know, in your soul that you have a gift that no one else understands. You know, I wish I was like, my gift was weightlifting. I wish my gift was, you know, something else, but you don't have the choice of doing what your gift is. And, you know, when I knew my gift was like sewing, I'm like, come on. I mean, I'm like, are you kidding me right now?
Yeah.
You know, my gift is not like teaching group. That came through like years upon years of experience of teaching group. You know, my gift was not being vulnerable. That was like being vulnerable through like year after year after year after year. And then me finally being comfortable enough to like be vulnerable. My gift is like sewing. When I started sewing, it came so natural that it was ridiculous. You know, I'm just like, I remember when my wife left and she left me with all the sewing material. She came back, I had a freaking blanket done. And she's like, is this your gift? And I was like, man, I don't know if that's my gift.
That's too funny. Yeah, I wish my gift was good looks, but you know, God didn't give me that. I'm just out here surviving.
That's okay. God gave me like the gift of hair. You know, I have this amazing hair. Every time I go to my barber, she's like, hey, I'm like, what is the deal with your family and like your hair? You guys have the best hair ever. You know,
it's that Eastern European hair.
That's right. That's
survived 2 world wars. That hair.
That's right. That's right.
And like, not to continue to beat this dead horse about embracing what makes you different, but you tie into this a little bit in that third paragraph where you say, embrace your differences, love yourself and others as you deserve to be loved. You will experience extraordinary results. And when my wife and I filed for divorce from each other, and we ended up working it out and not ending the marriage, but when we had filed for divorce from each other, I had this very stark realization that I did not like myself. I did not love myself. I did not treat myself well. And I had to come to this like point where I had to decide if I was worth loving. And I remembered something that I had read in the Bible when I was very young. And Pharisees are trying to trip up Jesus, and they ask him essentially like, what is the greatest commandment of all? And he says, love the Lord your God with all your heart. And he says, love your neighbor as yourself. And I realized that I don't love myself. So how am I treating everybody else? How am I treating my wife? How am I treating my friends? How am I treating my family? How am I treating the world around me? When I hate myself, I was, you know, when you're at the point of wanting to end your life, it's generally not because you just won the lotto and things are going great and your marriage is awesome and you're happy with all the decisions you've made in life. You're miserable. But like that learning to love yourself is really the key, the starting point for any of this stuff is like figuring out that you're worth loving. And that's a difficult thing for people to figure out on their own, which is why I pretty much tell everybody that I meet is worth hanging out with, because they all have problems. Like, you got to go to counseling, and you got to talk this out, and you got to figure it out, because I'm biased. You can't talk to me just about it, but that learning to love yourself and others as you deserve and as they deserve, like figuring that out is the hardest but most rewarding thing that I think I'm continuing to work on. Like, I suck at it, but I'm getting better at it. I'm so self-critical still. I am my own worst enemy and my own biggest hater. Like, I am I don't love anything that I do because I always want it to be better. In my head, I see things and I just can't make my hands do it. It's like I have somebody else's hands attached to my brain, but I don't know. I want you to kind of talk about that a little bit more, if you will, about embracing your differences, but loving yourself. Like,
Well, I think that when I think a love is a lot like respect in a lot of aspects. And the reason why I say that is because if you don't love yourself, you shouldn't expect anybody else to. And that's the same thing with respect. If you don't respect yourself, don't expect anybody else to. And when you are trying to figure out your gifts and your talents, you're like doing all the stuff. And I'm going to say this because, and I kind of touch on this a little bit, your gifts and your talents and who you are is what separates you from everybody else. And when you have gifts and talents and you're not embracing your gifts and talents, you're really like squashing like your inner voice of, where you're going in your life and like how you can do this thing better. The thing that makes you different isn't like buying a different car, wearing different clothes. The things that make you different is, not hiding from who you truly are, because, talking like the locals when you're not local, that doesn't make you, that makes you like the locals. I'm from Minneapolis, I'm not from here. I'm not from Troy, Missouri. I'm not from Missouri. So when I'm
far from it.
Yeah. So when I come here, I'm like, everything seems, don't want to like offend people from Troy. I said, but in my,
let's offend them.
well, but
Garbage.
Yeah. But
Just kidding.
But here's the thing, right? I love the people that I got to know in Troy. I think they're wonderful people, but I'm used to diversity. I was in the military. I'm used to diversity.
Same.
I'm used to like a lot of different food. I'm used to a lot of different personalities. I'm used to a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And then when I moved to Troy, Missouri, I'm going to tell you, like, that was like a biggest slap in the face to my personality, to my character, to who I am as a person, to how I want to be as a father, to everything. And I had to hold on to what made me different as a father and a person. And I felt like I was numbing myself to be in an ordinary place. And the reason why I say that is because, when my father passed away, the person that really embraced me and stepped into that father role is like a person that I would say is a lot like Samuel L. Jackson. African American, like bold, like charisma, like all this stuff. And then I moved to a place like Troy, Missouri. I'm just like, that was like, it felt like it was a hit to my soul. And that is a lot like what this chapter is about too, because I thought I had to embrace Troy, but that made me feel like I had to, I don't know, change who I was as a person.
Yeah.
And when I worked in the Dream Center, I came across a guy named Omar Oliveras, who was probably the most talented, different person that I think I've ever met. And I love this dude. And I was testing him out for at the Dream Center when I worked there. And I looked at him, and it was like one of those things of like, I knew that I tainted my soul to be like where it was. I looked at him and I said, Omar, I said, no matter where you go, no matter what you do, you always have to be true to yourself. And he looks at me and he says, right back at you. And I looked at him and I said, dude, are you kidding me right now? He said, dude, you've been faking it for a long time, son, for you to be true to yourself. I was like, wow. And being true to yourself, also, you have to embrace your qualities. You have to embrace yourself. You have to love yourself. You have to respect yourself. And you have to move forward with who you are as a person. And when I was putting myself together after my PTSD relapsed, I had to like come to a place where I'm like, okay, I can love myself again. I can like embrace what makes me different again. But that was a hard thing, because when you embrace what makes you different, like some of your pride and some of your shame starts falling off because you realize that you're different. Yeah. And I'm going to say, even these glasses, my kids have this unique ability to make me cave on what makes me different.
Let's talk about it.
So go
ahead, get it out there. This is a great story.
Yeah. So my kids, my wife got me these glasses. And by the way, when you order glasses online and you wear glasses, you should be wearing glasses when you order glasses. I'm just going to say that, okay? So they came in the mail, and I was like, man, these are really cool glasses. And I was wearing them.
That's why they have the virtual try on.
Yeah.
They upload a picture of yourself, and you can see how dumb or how good you look.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm like, man, those are amazing. I love the way that they look. Well, my kids were like, dude, you look like my art teacher. And you know, my daughter's like, you look like I don't know. She was like making fun of me. And I was like, and then I went down to him, and I was about to do this, speaking at this mental health conference. And I was like, what am I supposed to do? These are the glasses I'm going to wear. And then Emily looks at me and said, why don't you go upstairs and get a Sharpie and like blacken them all out? And I'm like, really? I was like, should I do that? And she's like, yeah, why don't you go ahead and do that? And the thing is I'm one of those people that I speak to people all the time to be true to themselves, true to their personality, true to their healing, true to like all this stuff. And I'm the one that caved, and I'm the one that teaches people about courage. You need to be courage to stand up for yourself, and do all this stuff. And I'm the one that caved to my own daughters. And then when I finally, I came over here, and I was telling Zach's wife, Megan, we're upstairs in the kitchen. It's like, yeah, look what I did to my glasses. And Megan's like, yeah, you're such a loser that you did that. I was like, and I was telling Zach, I was like, yeah, I just can't believe I had my daughters talk me into that. And the thing is you can be talked into anything, if,
Yeah.
It's so hard sometimes to be true to yourself and where you're going that,
It's because it's like wired into us that we want approval, that we want somebody to love us for who we are. But like at the end of the day, not everyone is gonna. And when you can learn to accept that, that's like step one, is like, not everyone's gonna like me. Okay. You got that out of the way.
Yeah.
So now who are you?
Mm-hmm.
And figuring out who you are it's a never ending journey.
Well, it's a never ending journey if you like. Well, let me put that back. You said something about being popular. There's a guy that me and Zach know pretty well. His name is Stan Roach. And
Stan the man.
Stan the man. And Stan taught me something that I rarely ever say no to people. If someone asks me to do something, I always say, yeah, man, I'll be there, whatever. I rarely ever say no to people. But I was in a room and someone was asking Stan to do something, and it's something. It was just like a just a general request, And Stan says, "No, I'm not doing that." I'm like looking at Stan, like, really? And then after he got done talking or whatever, he pulls me aside and he made a statement to me that that I hold on to a long time, like how I answer people that need help now. And he told me, he says, first of all, you're not going to help. You can't help everyone. I said,
True.
and I said, the next thing I'm going to say to you is very important. He said, you can either be popular, which is going to take a lot of your time, and you have to say yes to everyone, and you got to please everyone. He said, or I said, you can take the respect route. And I was like, well, what does that mean? He said, the more you learn how to say no to people, the more you're going to respect yourself and the more people are going to respect you because you're being consistent in your delivery and your answers to people around you. And I'm like, I looked at him like, is that true? He's like, absolutely. He said, being popular, you're going to run yourself ragged. I said, but when you learn how to respect yourself and other people respect you, it's like, that's when you're starting to figure it out.
Yeah. That's that hits right on the money. And Stan's one of those people who is true to himself, and why I think both of us kind of gravitate towards a guy like that, because he's just authentically himself. And when you get in, like, a lot of the time we can recognize like real authenticity in people, not just trying to put on a show. And like, I don't think anybody thinks that the Kardashians are authentic people. And it's not to make a judgment on their, them as human beings, but they're actors in a way. Like, the show is a manufactured show and we're told it's a reality show, but it's like, we create these reality shows for ourselves in our own lives, and then we try to live them. And we put ourselves in these situations that we're not geared for. And then we wonder, why am I not doing well? And then you look back at your life and you're unhappy. You're unhappy with your track record. You're unhappy with the way things turned out. And it's like, well, because at no point in this were you true to yourself. And I'm preaching to the choir here, because the last 2.5 years of living in Troy, Missouri and trying to figure things out has been this trying to figure out who I am in Troy, Missouri, trying to figure out who I'm supposed to be out here, because I only came out here because I felt like God told me to come out here. I'm only here because I was called here. And then when things don't work out the way you want them to work out, you start questioning everything that you are and everyone who you like, everything that you do. You start wondering, what's the purpose? And that there's a lot of people out there who have put themselves in situations that they're not necessarily proud of, or that didn't work out the way that they wanted, because I've done it. And it gets you to a breaking point. It took me right back to where I was, 10, 15 years ago, where I'm, miserable and hate my life. And then I have this beautiful wife and this beautiful son, and I'm over here thinking that they'd be better off without me, thinking that they would be better off if I just ended my own life. All because I identified so much with what I thought I should be rather than who I was. And this journey of trying to find my way back has been tough. And luckily, I've had people like you, Mike, around me who have given me undeserved favor, is what I like to call it. And I know the people who I say that to do not really like when I say that, thank you for giving me favor. But it's true in a way that, like, they have taken me under their wing and helped me help me ask the questions and figure out the answers to those questions, and learn to love myself for who I am. Like, recently just got my nose pierced. That's one of those things that it's like I've always wanted to do since I was very young, like 13, 14.
You want to know something weird? I always want to get my lip pierced. Right here. I always want to get my lip pierced right here.
I've wanted to too, but I'm sticking to one facial piercing for now.
I hear you. I hear you. I've been on this tattoo thing.
Yeah.
Lately. So go ahead.
Tattoos are a big part of it too. Like look, I'm not saying go out and dye your hair blue and, walk around at a rally with a sign. Like I'm not encouraging you to be some social justice warrior because deep down inside you love turtles and you want everyone to know that their plastic straws are killing the turtles. What I'm telling you is stop making decisions based on what other people are going to think of you.
Mm-hmm.
Make decisions based on what you're going to think of yourself. And like this is something that I'm like struggling to, if I should share this or not on the podcast, but it's like, I'm going to do it anyways. Currently right now, I'm working overnights at Walmart and I'm not proud of that, but I've had to embrace that. That is the reality of my life right now because of the decisions that I've made in the place that I'm at. And I can either show up to that job and be miserable and be so mad that I'm there, like 80% of the people that I work with, or I can go in and be myself, which is a happy person, because I am a happy person. Life has beat the absolute snot out of me, but I'm a happy person. And it's like, I can choose to look at that as, man, how did I get here? Why does my life suck so bad? I'm working at Walmart. Or I can look at it and go, I'm blessed that I have a job. I'm blessed that I have a home. I'm blessed that I'm making some money, and in time I will figure it out. Mm-hmm. I'm going to figure out how to do this. I'm going to figure out how to run a successful personal training business. I'm going to figure out how to help people lose weight on a bigger scale than 5 people at a time. Like, I'm going to get this figured out. But for the time being, I'm going to stock groceries at Walmart while I'm figuring that out. And it's like, I'm embracing who I am. I'm embracing what I'm living while also aspiring to be more. Mm-hmm. And that's what I feel like you really try to punch home in this is like, embrace who you are, but don't embrace ordinary. Like, embrace the fact that you're an extraordinary person and try to discover that. I don't know. Do you feel like I'm putting words in your mouth or?
No. That's it. Like, you hit the nail on the head right there. Because if you look at even the cover of the book, it says on the bottom, it says a better road for mental health and recovery.
Yeah.
And I find it very interesting that I gave this book back to Jenny and Pastor Tracy so they could, put everything in order the way that they think it should be. Because if for me, I would just put Devos in there and they could just, whatever.
No rhyme or reason to it.
But what is interesting is you embracing yourself is number one. Is like really interesting. Because when you're at rock bottom and you're trying to put yourself together, one of the last things that you want to hear is you need to embrace what makes you different and not hide from it. You need to love yourself and love other people.
Yeah, because you're just thinking, I've done everything wrong. Why would I want to be me?
Yeah, and the thing is when you have someone that says, even the Bible verse, you're sitting there at rock bottom, or, you're trying to put your life together, or you're trying to be stronger in some area in your life. In the Bible verse, it says you're fearfully and wonderfully made. And then I can tell you, like, if for me and I was putting my life together, I'd probably be really upset that was number one. But yeah. I know, like,
it's a nice kick in the teeth to start things off.
Yeah. I was like, who the hell is this guy to tell me that I got to love myself and embrace that I'm different than everybody else? I already know I'm different. I'm at rock bottom. My life sucks. I'm trying to put my life back together. Or you're in a place where you want to improve your marriage, or, I know, like, husband and wife are going through this and they're doing this as a devotional. That would be like, it would be very hard for me to do a devotional right now in my marriage and have my wife say, "Are you embracing yourself?" That would be a very vulnerable moment for me. And my wife, I'd be looking at my wife is like, no. And if I'm going to be completely honest with you, one of the biggest regrets that I have in my life is I know for a fact that I'm not where God wants me to be in my life as a man and as a father. Like, I know, like, I should be different. I should be better, instead of like being complacent and doing the things I'm not supposed to do. Like, I can tell you, like, there's a guy in our 501c3 board that I messaged this morning. And I said, "Hey man," I said, you gotta kick my ass and tell me to put my ass in gear to remain grounded and remain humble in my life." And then he's like, "Well, you can call me." I was like, "No," I said, "You need to give me a daily reminder every single morning that I can't be complacent. I need to do this life for real, because I get in places in my life where I'm actually like doing stuff and I'm like going from point A to point B. But I'm telling you, I'm like the type of person like I think things are a good idea to start like doing a project, but I have like 50 projects that aren't finished."
Oh yeah.
Or like around the house. And Jenny's like, "What are you doing? You got the chicken coop over here. You're trying to like do this corner of the garage thing over here. You got this thing over here." It's like, "You planned on spraying bed liner on your truck again." I was like, "You didn't even do that. Summer's almost over. What's going on?" I was like, "You need to start knocking some of the stuff out." And then she's like, "You know who you are?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know who I am. I know who I am." It's like, exactly. Let's start knocking the stuff out. Let's make a list. Let's do this thing. Let's start accomplishing things and like doing all this stuff, you know?
Yeah. So I guess I'm gonna say my final comments, and then I'll let you say whatever you got to say, and we'll finish up our first episode here. But as you were kind of talking, I felt like this word embrace just kept rattling through my head. So I started just sitting here thinking about what that word embrace means, and like why that word specifically is so important here, to me at least. And like when I think of embracing somebody, I think about like hugging someone. I think about holding on to them. And I think about that sometimes you can embracing who you are. It's not necessarily that you're going to be happy with all of those things, but you need to wrap your arms around it and accept that that's who you are. Like that's really the big thing. And like when you're embracing that, I think about when I was a little kid and I would get in trouble and I might get spanked or I might get disciplined, but then I would get hugged and loved on like by my parents in a way like maybe not necessarily super pumped on the fact that I got punished, but they might come to me later and be like, "Hey, may not understand this now, but we're doing this because we love you and because we have to set rules and boundaries." Now, I still rebelled against every single one of those things, but they would embrace me in that moment of who I was. They weren't proud of where I was. They still wanted me to change, but it's like in order to make any sort of progress, there has to be this acceptance of everything. And I think it's really hard for people to do that because you more than likely have some things that you're not proud of that you've done. Some things you've said, some actions, some decisions that you've made, but you've more than likely done some things that you would want to distance yourself from and say, "No, that's not me." And in order to really make progress with your life, in order to really get better at anything, you have to be willing to take that and say, "The good, the bad, the ugly, it's all mine. Let's make something out of this." So that's the last thing I'm going to say. Next week, we have what to fill myself with, and we'll go over that one.
That's a slobber knocker too. But
yeah.
So my last thought in this book is, this is a faith-based book. I'm a Christian. Zach's a Christian, but we're not gonna tell you that you have to do like all this stuff. But I am gonna say this, okay? I know we touched on this on Zach's podcast. When you are going through things and you're trying to figure out like who you are and you're trying to like embrace your gift and you don't like it, things will be like awkward at first, but the people that aren't embracing you, you know, it's kind of like, why would a wolf hang out with sheep to be the same? You know, you're not like everybody else. You know, you need to embrace what makes you different and not hide from it. And, you know, when you're climbing and the sheep are watching you, your ascent is threatening, you know, and they're watching you and like, how can he do that? Because I guarantee you, you know, the opinions of other people and all the haters that you have in your life are looking at you and be like, well, how can he do that? And I'm not doing that. And the reason why you can do that is because you're tired of being ordinary when God made you extraordinary, really. So when you are doing your thing and, you know, and you're embracing yourself and you're loving yourself more and you're going through all this stuff, there are people out there that are not going to like you and are going to be talking crap about you. And let me just say this, like I said before, all those people that talk crap about you are none of your business. And if you're going to do this for real, there are going to be people that are going to be watching you and be like, okay, well, let's see if he follows through. And then when you finally follow through, you start accomplishing the things that you want to accomplish in life. That is something to be proud of, that you loved yourself through it, that you accomplished the things that you want to accomplish in life, and that, you know, those people are still like stuck right where they are. And that's why they're angry with you, not because you're doing something different. They're angry with themselves because they stayed right where they were. They're still right where they are. I can tell you, like, when I joined the military, I was not proud to join the military. I wasn't. I barely passed high school. I flunked out of Bible college. I'm like, well, I guess there's still the military, and I joined the military. But you know, when I came back from the military, I saw all those kids from high school that were still doing the same thing. And I went to like 30 different countries, and, you know, I did all this stuff, and I came home and they were still doing the same thing. So when you embrace what makes you different, your life is going to go to places that you don't expect either. So that's really my final thought.
I lied. I have one more thing to say. This is the book. Work it out. We're going to be going through this. If you would like a copy, please message me. I'm going to hopefully create some easier ways to get in contact with me. Maybe just like I'll create a special email. And if I do that, it'll be in the notes of this video. And if you email us, you know, if you share this podcast, if you get something from this podcast and you share it, screenshot it, email it to me, I'm going to give away a few books. I know I have 4 or 5 to give away between this and that. And if you would just like to buy a copy of this book, you can also email or message us, and we can get you a link to purchase the book. I believe as of right now, the only way to purchase this book is directly through the Mike and Jenny Sherbanenko, your guys' nonprofit.
Yeah, right now, yeah.
Yeah. So you gotta reach out. You need help, you gotta reach out. But I would highly suggest getting yourself a copy of this book. Well worth the money, well worth the investment in yourself. And for less than 5 minutes a day, you can start seeing some genuine improvement in the way that you think about yourself, the way that you feel about yourself, and the way that you start moving forward with things. So have a great day.